I'm Julia Marie Mays.
And I'm Gerald Mays, her house husband.
My house husband, which we've established. The roles have switched recently on this year. I just became a first grade teacher this year. Finally graduated, became a big girl. And through that, somehow, I'm now outside of the house and Gerald's in the house, which is actually the first time that's been like this. Yeah, in our entire relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, yeah, that quick little intro for anybody that maybe doesn't know who we are, or just a little bit. Yeah. What are some of the things that have maybe highs and lows of being a now house husband or the parent that's primarily at home?
Oh, I don't like used trash. Yeah, it's not for me. I'm not cut out for house husband life. I'm probably more suited to be a worker, be out in the world. But somebody got to be here with Lena Bingster. Huh, Lena?
Our dog.
She over there knocked out. Somebody got to be here and give her some loves and scrubs and baths and all that other good stuff. So it is what it is, and I got to do what I got to do right now.
Well, I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you.
So I know being the home body, the homemaker of the family is definitely no easy feat. So shout out to all my home people making the house run smooth, and then the people that are out in the world, because it definitely works together. Oh, do you like this pen?
You gotta check this pen out. And it's like a diamond at the top.
That was a gift from one of my students because they love me.
And like colored diamonds inside.
I get all kinds of gifts. When you're like a teacher that your students really love, they get you like all kinds of little gifts. I got a
really cool pen.
Like Dia de los Muertos little skull that one of my students brought in.
Oh.
But you know, that's just neither here nor there. So we've been gone for a little bit. Gerald was explaining before we realized our audio was bad. So first one was intentional. Why did we not do one? Didn't we have like a function we went to?
Yeah, I think we went to a political function. That's why we didn't do one.
Yeah, that Friday night.
And then that span of free time, we got to thinking, how can we make this a little bit better? We don't want to take any more time off, so we'll be as consistent as possible on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. We don't want to take any more time off at all, actually. So we just want to kind of grow this channel, grow this group, and provide solid content for people to actually be able to use and benefit from. And we wanted to be able to do that at a time that was probably a little bit more beneficial. When you're at home at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's probably a lot easier to jump on and listen to us ramble if you find any value in what we talk about than it is at 7, 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Because I know for us, even I was like, I kind of want to get out and go do something with the kids or the family, or even just her and I. I don't want to be sitting on the interwebs talking shit.
No.
Excuse my French.
No, you're excused. No, but yeah, so we just definitely wanted to, and for those of like people who haven't seen us or those of you that come back, Gerald and I are just two married people that are really trying to create a space for anybody really, that anybody that's willing to come on and like discuss things, you know what I mean? We've got a really woke world right now, or not woke, whoever. There's so much stuff going on, and it's really important for us to be able to like create a space where we can talk about things, where we can talk about the wokeness of something, or the unwokeness, or just married life in general, how to keep a family together, how to keep yourself together, and
I think everybody is woke, and I think there's no place to navigate the wokeness. You know what I mean? I'm not advocating for being woke either. Trust me.
Yeah, I think
what I'm saying is that there's so much information that there isn't a space or a group where we can actually walk through the information and actually start to implement it. Because all the information is good, all the information is true, just all of that information may not be good for you in your life. So we want to kind of go through all of the tips and tools, the scientific research, as well as some of our personal experiences in our own marriage, And maybe you can find some tips and tricks and tools to start implementing for your family, your spouse, your children, your finances, your health, and do that with effective communication. The show's called Yes We Fight because we have 14 years of fighting through our communication. And we just now are at a place where we don't have to fight about it. We can actually speak. So why not share that with everyone else? So that's where we're here. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about the shit that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're doing the things that we're doing, because we really just want to provide a safe space for couples, married or not, with kids, to thrive as families, honestly.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. So today, when we sat down and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about, one thing that I wanted to discuss was understanding your own hurts, traumas, so you don't bleed on the people that you care about, the people around you. And, I specifically wanted it to be the people that you love, mainly because, we can go it and make it very general. You don't want to bleed on people around you. And by bleeding, it basically means you're dumping your physical, emotional, or mental issues onto the people around you because of your lack of ability, awareness, fear to deal with it. It could be a number of ones. I don't think we intentionally bleed on people most of the time.
No. Think about bleeding though, right? Like when you bleed, you just bleed.
Yeah, it is uncontrollable.
And you can try to control it. It doesn't matter how much you hold on or whatever, it's still going to seep through. The only thing that you can do is stop the bleeding, not control where it goes.
Right. So that's one thing that I was really specific, because unfortunately, like even for me, most of the time when I've been emotionally dumping or bleeding out, it's unfortunately been on those closest to me, which are the people that I care about the most. Which has been, it is. That's the hard part, is that by the time you realize what you're doing or what you've done, by the time you realize that oftentimes it's on the heels of some really terrible decision making, and you're looking at your partner just standing there looking like Carrie. The scene, the scene, yeah, where it's like there's just blood drenched. Obviously that was paint, but the visual where they're just standing there completely covered in your blood, just standing there like, yo, like this is really not cool.
No shit, I understand.
So you know what I mean, and that's the hard.
Don't get me wrong, I've done my fair share of bleeding on my wife as well.
So I think it's just one of those things where it's like coming to that place of realizing like really where you're at and then how to deal with it. So I think I really wanted to touch on that because I think it's something that's really valuable, especially in relationships and marriages, because you spend an obscenely large amount of time together naturally.
Yeah, way more time you spend with the person that you choose and the people that you've chosen to make than you do with your own parents.
Right.
The family that raised you. You spend more time raising another family.
Right. So I think that's something that we wanted to talk to, because we bring those traumas and things into relationships that we don't know are there. Which brings me to the first bullet point. What is trauma? What is it? Before we can discuss understanding your own hurts and trauma, I think it's important for us to be able to point out what is trauma. And I actually pulled up the definition so we can do like...
I love when you do that. Oh, let's see.
Go ahead. I know. So what is trauma? Per the intranet and the dictionary. What is trauma? A deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Emotional shock following a stressful event or a physical injury, which may be associated with physical shock that can sometimes lead to long-term neuroses. Now,
long-term neuroses.
It is. Now, this is really, really, like, obviously we understand traumatic events and we all have stories like that. I think the thing about trauma is that as we've gotten older, at least for me as I've gotten older, I've started to realize that trauma does not always look like these very traumatic events in our lives. They don't have, like, I've unfortunately had to deal with rape. Now, I know it got real heavy real fast. So I'm fortunate.
Discussing everything.
I know. We are. We're baby steps for me. Baby steps. Now, the reason I brought that up is because my personal story with rape is not like what you see on the TVs or the things that we watch, where you're jogging and then someone drags you off. Now, mine wasn't like that. And I always looked at it because it wasn't as grand of a story, or if it didn't seem as dramatic, that it really wasn't a big deal, or I didn't realize the heaviness of it. So the point of bringing that really, really, kind of boom there is understanding that our trauma does not always have to be, it doesn't, we can't compare the stories of what it looks like. Childhood trauma can come in the form of not having enough to eat consistently over time. It can come in the form of having family nicknames that are actually really hurtful. Mm. You're the chubby one in the family. You're the only one that maybe has a little more weight on you. Mm. And then, like in my family, you're gordo. Which is like fat in Spanish. You know what I mean? Like all these little things, these nicknames, you know what I mean? You've got big ears, or there's something about you, and you got a big behind. You got this, all these things. So trauma, I just wanted to point it out.
You got big ears, they call you Flappy.
I know. Of course I didn't. But
I mean, back when I was growing up, they called me Caca, Dirty Red, Meathead, Headquarters, all that. All that because they had a big old head.
Yeah, so all these things, I think that's the thing. So I wanted to start off with something that's a little more like, bam, just because even though now I can understand that anytime your body's violated in any kind of way, that's traumatic, period. But in my young mind, in my young 18-year-old self, because I did not have what I read about, because it didn't look like that, because I was kind of conscious enough to be able, like I could remember, but I couldn't do anything about it. I felt like it wasn't as bad, and I kept it a secret for a long time. I only told one other person. And I wanted to point out that trauma does not always have to come in the form of these really, really grandiose type of experiences. It can come subtly.
Another thing, though, that you have to take into consideration, too, though, is that yours is still grandiose.
It is. I didn't understand that, though.
Yeah. And
compare.
I think the message that you're trying to get across is trauma is trauma, and it doesn't matter how small it is.
Yeah, don't belittle it as well.
Exactly. Respect the trauma, and don't try to, what's the word? Don't try to rationalize your way out of trauma, because trauma isn't rational. Also, at the same time, we have to take into consideration that even though your trauma is huge, we have very similar responses to trauma, and it doesn't matter how big that issue is. So you can have a very similar traumatic response because you are taken advantage of sexually, and you can also have those same traumatic responses because you know someone that did, or you cared for somebody who went through something like that, or you have been exposed to it on numerous occasions, or you stubbed your toe. And that's literally how trauma stores. Like, you stub your toe in the right moment at the right time, and your whole world can come crashing down. We all been there, right? You have logged on to your phone a million times seamlessly, but right now, when you're pissed off, it took you an extra step, and now you're damn near about to blow up and crash your phone on the ground because you didn't get what you are accustomed to. And couple that with how you feel in the moment, it creates all of these issues. And the underlining part is that trauma could be attached to that situation in a way that we aren't really understanding of. And I think it's important that we do discuss trauma, and we do kind of take into consideration, like, what are our traumatic responses? Mm-hmm. I suffer from PTSD, did 8 years in the Marine Corps, did a tour in Iraq. I have some trauma. And it shows up in a way that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's another thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like, although I know that I'm hyper vigilant, I'm speaking for you. Although I know I'm hyper vigilant because someone took advantage of me sexually, I feel safer acting out my trauma, which is being hyper vigilant
Yeah.
not putting myself in certain situations, not going to parties, not drinking certain alcoholic beverages, not drinking more than I personally feel.
Yeah.
These are all the things that I know about you because of these situations,
Right,
right?
right, right,
You
right.
don't drink as much because of those things, and we tell ourselves that this is safety,
Right.
but it's not safety. It is a trauma response. I was molested as a 13-year-old, by a man. And my response to that seemed like safety. I don't mess with these types of people. I don't put myself in these situations. And whatever my sexual frustration or confusion was, I took it out on every single woman from the age of 14 till fucking on. And it provided comfort, but it didn't address the trauma. And I think that is the crucial part behind trauma and trauma responses is that when they play out in the real world, it plays out as a measure of safety.
Yes. At least for me, would you say the same thing for you? Safety or being safe is something that I've realized is something extremely important to me. If I don't feel safe, then I can respond in a number of ways depending on the situation. I think that's the thing about trauma is that those traumatic situations show themselves in every other area of my life, but
Mm-hmm.
depending on that situation, it might present itself a little differently.
Yeah. Because that one trauma, it tells you that you need to be safe. So then, so yeah, I think of trauma like a web, right? It starts off small, but it fans out into every area. Because if you're not safe here, then you're probably not safe anywhere.
Right.
And that's what hypervigilance is.
Right.
And I'm giving y'all free game, thousands of dollars worth of therapy.
Gosh.
Thousands of dollars worth of therapy that I found out for myself. But our trauma shows up in all areas. And the reason why it's so hard to deal with your trauma is, like I said before, it shows up in an arc, right? On one side, it's safety. On the other side, it is destroying of relationships. So now I can't get close to her. I can't be intimate because of some trauma that happened to me when I was 13 years old because I'm too cautious about who I allow close to me, who I allow to tell me that sex is important to me. I'm very, very cautious. And it's safety until I get married. And then when I get married and I need to be open and intimate, because that's essentially what intimate is being open and vulnerable, I am unable to do that. I am unable to be open and vulnerable sexually because of my past trauma. But that happened when I was 12 to 13, no, 11 to 12 years old. I don't know how to express that.
Right.
So then it turns into everything else. So then by the time I do meet her, I have no idea why I'm like this.
Right.
And I chalk it up as a personality issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, me too, though. I think it's one of the things where trauma showed up, and we're discussing this, and there's obviously various forms. We're just showing how those experiences in our life showed up in our marriage. So for me, there was like a lot of the way that I responded afterwards was trying to take like first of all I became very secretive. You know, girls don't do this, girls don't do that, and then you take full control. Like I'm in control. Like I'm choosing this, but it actually created a deep self-conscious. I was extremely self-conscious, and still to this day, there's still sometimes self-conscious where I find myself, even though we've been together for a really, really long time. We've been married 14 years, but together 18, like 18, almost 19 years. And there's still sometimes like that vulnerability with him a little bit where it's like looking for that reassurance that was extremely void at that time. Like that was the hole was it was gaping. So, oh gosh. I should have known. No, but it created, so all of those experiences created a lot of really rough sexual intimacy between us. Of like, it was like this really awkward, and sometimes I still find myself in it that I have to work myself out of like this space of like, okay, do we take a step forward? Do we take a step back? fact, like, I really want to because I really love you, but I want you to want to too. It's like it creates all of these little things that also showed up in conversation.
Mm.
Now it became in regular conversation. If I had that feeling, for me, when I'm extremely emotionally led, I'm very emotionally, my emotions are very sensitive. I'm a little more empathic in it. And it just carries so deeply with the emotions. So it's like, I don't want to feel this way. So in conversation with him, my chest starts to knot and I start to feel it's like, mayday, we're going down. And immediately it's like start going into protective mode of like, this isn't safe. You know what I mean? Because his words can hurt me. Everyone else in the world, I can be like, F off. I can't do that with him. I just can't. Have I said F off? Yes. Was it good? No. And it was completely, when I look at all those situations, fear. So I'm not safe, I am afraid. So my responses have been based off because I'm not safe, I'm afraid. And my fear, what I've realized, I lived in such a fearful space for so many years that fear brought on mental instability, it brought on emotional instability, it brought on intimacy issues with my husband because I was afraid. I just didn't know it. And the people around me didn't know that either. At that time, when you're talking about like 2000, the level of mental health, it wasn't the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It wasn't the same. I didn't get any help after some of the traumatic issues that I'd been through. There wasn't any support. There was people, there was support, like we're here for you, but there wasn't the support in the way that it is today. No one knew.
Is there support today though? I think the thing is, I don't think support matters. I think the issue is that situation is embarrassing, and because it's embarrassing, keeps people from saying stuff. I think that's a part of it. The fact that people don't know how to respond to that is also a part of it. And I just think that there's so much shit, so many places that we have to go in order to be able to understand all of it. But trauma shows up as fear.
Yeah, at least.
And I think you said that is exactly what
For
you
me,
said.
yeah.
And I was gonna say, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, right? Is that I believe fear kind of ruminates through everything. Like
Yeah.
there's a line of fear in every scenario.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Like even the words that we choose, like stress. Well, why are you stressed out? Well, you're stressed out because you're afraid that if this happens, then you won't be able to do this,
Right.
or whatever that
Right.
is. But it's still fear, right? Why do you have a hard time in relationships? Well, I'm afraid that my needs won't get met, so I have to say every single thing right now and not let anyone interrupt me, not let anything do that. I'm also afraid that I'm going to lose interest because that's what I do. So there's so much fear that we intertwine in who we are that we have to navigate. It is the hurdle. Fear is the hurdle of everything. I have a failure to launch in a lot of situations. I can build, I work hard, I do all of those things, but when it comes time to putting that thing out there for the world to judge, I get cold feet. We can call it whatever we want, but it's simply just being afraid. And I think there's a place where we can use big words, right? But I think when we're actually really trying to figure out what is the problems with us, I think you should use as minimal different words as possible. And stop giving yourself such a huge swing in emotions when they're all just different displays of the same thing, right? Being happy is no different than being jovial or ecstatic or whatever, but we use words like that to show degreeing levels
Right.
of that. And that may tell a great story, but it doesn't tell us where our trauma is and what we're afraid of because we say stress, anxiety, depression instead of fear and sadness. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad because I am afraid that this won't happen for me or I won't be able to achieve this. I am afraid of what I don't know in the future. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think the more we keep coming up with words to not make it seem as straightforward as possible, the more of a disservice we do for our own selves as we try to navigate our trauma. If you were in the third grade and someone slapped you upside the head with a pickle and now you don't like pickles, it's still trauma.
Right.
And that trauma is going to show up when you're 40 something years old. And maybe it's just like, nah, I don't fuck with pickles, right? For some people. Or maybe you're on Maury Povich fucking screaming and running off stage because somebody brought out a platter of pickles. It's how
right.
None of it is different. I think we have to be very careful about making different distinctions about the same thing because the person displays the action for the world to see differently than someone else. So because you cry, your experience has to be more traumatic than mine because I didn't cry. And I think we have to stop telling other people that, and we have to stop telling ourselves that. How many times have we gotten into an argument where I was automatically in the wrong because I made you cry?
I don't know how many times. I guess the bigger question is how many times did you feel that way?
Exactly.
Because my tears, me crying, was never. I am a crier, but I have never used crying to use a point to make a point or to like make you feel bad. It's just a natural response that I have when I'm upset or frustrated. I cry. Mm-hmm. So I guess the bigger question is really how many times did me crying make you feel like that you didn't have a voice or that you didn't have anything to do?
Oh, all the time. That's the crux of what I was trying to express, right? Is that it happens all the time. But the responsibilities, and I think that's what I want to talk about as well, is like, where does the responsibility lie to change it, right? There's two different places that we can change trauma, and that's between you for yourself and me in support. And my trauma, me for myself, and mm-hmm. you in support. That is it. Like, all right, so let's give an example. Oh, actually, I want to go back to what you were talking about. What you got? What are we missing?
One thing that you were saying that really does matter is why is understanding and healing your trauma important? Why is understanding those events extremely important? And you were kind of discussing about it. It's important to understand how the experiences in your life and the traumatic experiences or just stressful, all of those experiences have shaped you so that you can actually start tackling and working with them and asking yourselves the why. Mm. It's important because what you were saying, because it shows up in every aspect of your life, it does not discriminate the situation. Absolutely. Just because my event happened in a more sexual, intimate way, in that type of closeness, it's shown up in my emotional life. It's shown up in my trust. It's shown up in all of these
value, your worth, what you believe right, you can accomplish, right. All that.
What
stuff.
I believed about myself. I shy away from compliments. Like there's certain aspects about myself that I push away that I never really understood because I thought it was okay. It's like I think sometimes we minimize situations also based on to tell ourselves we're okay. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. Because we don't have the tools. So the only tool that we know how to do is to like close the door on it. So I think it's important to understand that the reason why you want to identify those places in yourself is that so that you can deal with them and really heal from them and then have healthy relationships. Our marriage has been unhealthy for multiple years because we just didn't have the tools, not because I didn't care. Mm-hmm. And I've told Gerald this multiple times. I feel like there are dozens and hundreds of thousands of marriages that ended between two people that really loved each other, that felt that that was their person. But because they didn't have the tools to deal with certain things, decisions were made, and now stuff irreconcilably, like things happened that now they can't come back from it. Because they didn't have those tools and then they went down a path. And it's not to condone like bad decisions or really terrible arguments or the things that we say and do that are hurtful to our spouse. It's just about being able to go back into those spaces and look at it for what it is and say, I really messed up there. And you can't do anything about it, but now you can be better. You can recognize and be better so that you don't continue down those same paths of hurting of self, hurting of the people around you.
100%.
All of it. Because all of it stems from self-pain. My experience has validated my lack of worth or my need to be validated. my need for Gerald to validate me as a woman, as a wife, all of those things, not recognizing that that had to come from me. But I didn't know that. You broke it, you fix it. That was kind of my thought. You broke this, you fix it. Not realizing that I am in control of me. The only thing I couldn't control was the actions of the people around me. I can't control what anybody else does. But I had to take full control of myself in every aspect to start reworking some of those things. Which kind of lines up with exactly what you're saying is once I identify those things, obviously in an ideal situation, you would need to have a conversation with your partner or spouse and kind of start hammering out those things. Like, my responsibility is to work on me. It would be helpful if Gerald was understanding that I'm working on these things and to not poke and prod at them. That doesn't always happen, but, and I don't mean between you and I, just
that's the
in
reason
real
why.
life. But
That's the reason why there's two sides, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
You're in charge of your trauma, and I'm in charge of support. And I think never forget that. Like, you are in charge. I think the thing is that we are not therapists.
No.
So we are not here to go back in the past and go through every single scenario.
Like, unpack it.
And unpack it. That is a very dangerous thing to do emotionally, and you should do that under the care of a licensed professional. But what we want to do is say that trauma shows up throughout your entire life, and I'm more concerned with what that past trauma has created for you today. What do you have to deal with now in your life because of how you felt back then? I told my mom, and she did not believe me. And ever since then, baby, I can give a fuck about anybody and what they said.
Right.
I don't have trust in the people who are supposed to take care of me. So why would I have trust in anyone else? That sounds like a very safe thing to do for a 14-year-old boy. It sounds very traumatic when you get married and you have 4 children, though, because I'm still the same way. So then when I take a look, it's like, I need to address this for my family. How do I do that? And I think it is important for us to understand, be respectful to the fact that the emotional burden that comes with trauma is something that needs to be discussed and dealt with through the eyes of a trained, licensed professional.
Yes.
But you can do the work to change how you perform on your day-to-day right now.
Right.
Because you have to anyway.
Right.
So how do we change trauma?
I think
how do we change our responses and habits that we formed around keeping us safe from the trauma we've experienced in the past?
I think for me personally, I had to recognize first that once I identified, like, I'm really unhealthy in this space. I was unhealthy in multiple spaces. And it doesn't mean that, like, I wasn't functioning. Like, I had to recognize that just because I was keeping my house together, just because I was running a business, just because I was going to school, all of these things, I had to recognize that my actions around me were really unhealthy. Mm-hmm. So once I started to identify the healthy, unhealthy things that I was doing, that's the first place that I had to start working on. And it was really difficult. I had to realize that my fear of being abandoned, and in particular, in my relationship with Gerald, I never felt secure. It was like, you could go at any time. He's made that very clear. You could leave at any time, which is a very true statement. That is a true statement. But for someone that has a fear of abandonment, telling me that I can go at any point in time.
We could talk about this all day.
It really is. It created something in me.
Because it's literally 2 trauma responses having a conversation.
Yes. Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
That's really all it is. My trauma response says, I can't get close to you because I can't trust you. The people who were the closest to me didn't protect me. So why would I ever put that burden on you? You can go whenever you want to. You are not tied to this place. You can go.
Right. No.
And if you don't get the things done that I feel that I need in a relationship, you can go.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. But based on her trauma response, she took it that way.
No, 100%, 100%. It's like the things and the issues that we brought into the relationship, unfortunately, and I think probably what works at this with other dynamics, but his responses and my responses completely
Mm-hmm.
clashed, and I didn't understand that. His insecurities and his issues and his stuff really had a negative effect on mine, and
Mm-hmm.
mine really had a negative effect on his. So all of these subconscious things that we dealt with really hindered the actual genuine desire that I personally had to be vulnerable with him, that I really wanted to be close with him. And I think it was that real general, like that desire that really, I think, sustained through the years because we always tried to find those little pieces, but it was hard because, like you said, subconsciously we were in this battle.
Yeah, and you realize that the only reason why your significant other catches the brunt because you love that person and you want that person to fix it. In the most simplest terms, obviously we know that you can't fix it, but that's what we want, right? We want we want the person that we choose to see us not the way we have seen ourselves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's what we desire. And then we're going to buck up against every single time our slip shows for the verbal.
Oh, I like
back in the day
I wore slips.
when you slip show.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good one.
I think that's what it is.
You know,
When your slip shows, our response is to protect ourselves. When you
mm,
have dealt with trauma and you have gone through life trying to mask the trauma, then you get angry when people see you. And unfortunately, the person that's going to see you the most is the motherfucker that's right next to you all day, every day.
you know what?
She knows, she sees the inconsistencies in
Mm-hmm.
what you say. She sees the inconsistency in what you say and how that compares to what you do. She also sees the inconsistency in your emotional well being. You can't
Mm-hmm.
hide. So you can't come down here, say something, and then have that person not say, that don't feel right. What's going on with you? And my initial response is to be like, you don't know me. Shut up, leave me alone, whatever it may be. And really, that's a response to, I'm not prepared to discuss my emotional well being right now. So, because I don't know how to communicate that, fuck off.
Right. It just comes across, and it always comes across in like the worst possible way.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking like just from Gerald. I'm just saying the way that we respond, it generally tends to be like if you would have chosen between A, B, C, or D, it's like the worst of all four of them is the one you're like, you know what can cause the most damage? This one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, because I think some of it sometimes it makes us feel in control. And you saying the slip showing,
because you could say, hey, you know what? I would really need for you to give me about 30 minutes. Let me gain my composure and let me center my emotional well-being, and then I will continue the conversation. And the short form of that is leave me the fuck alone.
right, right, and yes, no, 100%.
And low key, it is important for you as the other spouse to hear that and do it. Don't get mad. It's not the time to have the conversation on if they should be talking to you like that. Just leave. Discuss it later.
Oh, that is.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that?
Do you hear it?
Do you hear it?
That is the hardest thing to do.
When I say leave me the fuck alone, you leave me the fuck alone. Okay. High five.
High five on you.
What you doing?
Working on.
You can't come over here.
Not saying it and then me leaving him alone. It's true though, but it is true because that's something that for me that roused me up. That definitely roused me up. So I think it's about understanding what's better for the situation. I think that's something that I've also had to deal with.
Lay down. Go lay down.
I think that's one thing is recognizing that in that moment, this isn't going to end in a healthy way. This isn't going to end. It's trying to recognize that Gerald and I can easily, we can go from 0 to 100 just like many other people. But I think for me, what I find myself is when we do have arguments now, it's really upsetting to me because I'm really mindful. I don't ever want to be in the place where we have before. So I have to work on allowing for that situation to calm down because for me, I'm like trying to deal with it then in that moment. Like I'm ready to say, you know what, we're not handling it well right now. I don't want us to be like that. And that isn't always like the best thing for the situation. Gerald in that moment isn't always ready to like be like, you know what, you're right. Even if what I'm saying could be correct, like, you know what, he can. I think he can recognize. We both can agree. Our true selves can agree, and that some of the way that we have handled arguments in the back have been completely unhealthy and dysfunctional, hurtful, traumatic for the people around us. But in that moment, me trying to let him know and identify that maybe not the right time. Maybe later. That's just something that I've had to work on and recognize that it isn't going to be handled the way that I want it to. And I have to be okay with that. The whole agree to disagree thing, which I hate.
Uh-oh.
I hate
Is
it.
that what you want to talk about too? You want to talk about agreeing to disagree?
No, that actually didn't come up, but now that it has, I just hate agreeing to disagree. I will say that
Why?
every time it comes up. You know what? I'm working on it. Agreeing to disagree is like no result. It's just basically spending 45 minutes to come to the same conclusion that there isn't a resolution to this, and I just hate it. Unresolved things for me, this is what unresolved things for me leave my insecurities and the my insecurities. They poke at my insecurities, and I work on that. But they poke at my insecurities and bring them up in a way that mentally for me are very unhealthy. So that's something that I have to. That's something that I've consistently worked on.
Arguing doesn't resolve things.
Well, no, I understand.
And for me, agreeing to disagree is a recognition that this won't get resolved. So because it won't get resolved right now, let's pause it. Because you're not going to convince me otherwise, and I'm not going to convince you. So let's go a different direction.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with it. Like, I get it. I hate them from the sense of it creates something in me that I have to very deliberately and consciously work at. That's the part where it's like you have to do the work. Those situations force me to have to do the work that is necessary for the betterment of myself as a person and for my relationship and my family. Because it creates those holes. It creates I have a lot of negative self-talk that I've had to really, really work through. I didn't know that about myself. Because I'm generally like a really happy, like I'm an upbeat,
yeah, bro, we all have negative self-talk.
But I mean, I just realized that underneath the surface there was a really hurt person, really hurt little Julia that just really wanted someone to be like, you're gonna be okay. So I have to be the one. And she sparks herself in those insecure moments. And that just happens to be a situation that it brings it up. It brings it out in me. Yeah. So I have to take time and cry in the corner by myself.
That comes all the time. Like for me, one of my traumatic response, and the reason why I have a failure to launch is because I have to put myself out there. And I don't trust people. I don't trust anybody. So how can I trust that if I put it out there, they're going to see it the way I see it, they're going to hear it the way that I hear it, they're going to do all of this stuff the way that I...
Yeah, that criticism
you know what I mean?
A doozy.
Yeah, it is.
That fear.
And it all stems down to like not being validated while you're growing up in a way. And it's one of those things that I've taken very, very seriously as I've been a father over the last 18 months for sure, is... Your kids don't always need discipline or instruction. Most of the time, they need confidence. They need to believe that regardless of what happens, you are going to be there. You support whatever it is that they do. I used to think it was just teaching and discipline. And then you realize, like, these kids are like, tired of all of it. But then I realized that that's what I do everywhere. Because my response to being caught off guard is to be always on guard.
In control of the situation.
Always in control. Always learning. Always getting better. And even that, in the world they'll tell you being successful, but even that is a traumatic response. No one will catch me slipping. I hear this all the time. You can scroll through Facebook and hear all the different tropes of trauma coming out, right? My beliefs aren't to be challenged. But why? All beliefs should be challenged. And if they're true, they should stand every single challenge. Period. But we don't like to be challenged. But why? Where does that stem from? I know I don't like to be challenged. But why? That stems from being on my own for so long. Made it this far. Nobody can tell me shit.
Right. And then insert me, and it's like, well, I kind
Yeah,
of
insert her.
don't.
It's like, oh, I want you to do what I say.
Kind
And
of
I'm
don't.
like, no, thank you. But I say that seriously just because we slide around, we do so much stuff back and forth, and we never actually just understand that you could have had a very small traumatic experience, and that traumatic experience created you to do this thing. And because you do this thing, you now have to do these 12 things to make this thing natural. And on and on and on. All the way down to being 38 years old. What's up? You just jumping in here. We on live right now.
Okay, but look.
Let me see.
Okay. Our daughter just came in. This is
All
for.
right.
Oh.
Hey!
Okay.
So
Lady
that's what this looks like right here. This is Layla, my daughter. She made the Clark varsity flag football team. So she had to bust in, stop our show to let us know that she's being great. That she gets to be herself. That's a good job, babe. I love
Good job. We're almost done and we'll celebrate.
Yep. Love you.
You know what? One thing that you said is one thing that I want to make sure it's like all it takes, it doesn't even take like a small, you said small, but I know that one thing to add to that is it only takes one.
Mm-hmm.
It only takes one something that creates something within you that, like you were saying, I really like that web effect that just continues to grow and shows up in other situations. And unfortunately, because of that one event, that potentially one situation, now other traumatic events have been created off of that. Which I just wanted to say. Sorry. I think everything threw off with Layla's flag football. But I thought you really made a good point. I really like the web. And I also really like the slip.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about people who slip. It suddenly I had like an aha moment. I have always been seen a certain way. I was always seen a certain way growing up because of who I was or how I looked and things like that. And it's interesting that you had said you didn't like the slip showing because I really liked you early on. Like, I really liked you. And.
That's because I'm the shit. Smell it?
Oh my gosh. True.
You smell it?
I do.
Something smell like the shit. Oh.
That's me. No, but I really, really liked you. When it was just he and I in those moments and stuff, like, I really liked you. But because of, I wasn't even able to be as vulnerable as I really wanted to be because I was too afraid that if he saw me, he wouldn't like it.
Mm.
And I just wasn't able to vocalize that, or emotionally, I didn't realize it. But deep down inside, I just really wanted I wanted to be safe with him, but I couldn't, and I got in my own way multiple times very early on in the relationship through not being honest, through trying to hide, not navigating him and my family's relationship well. All of these things that I did that ended up hurting him, which obviously ended up creating something in my relationship, which unfortunately was the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. My deep desire to be vulnerable with him, but my lack of awareness of what these events did to me created walls that I could not have even understood at that time. The walls that were built on both sides of us, that we were both simultaneously building around ourselves to protect, did the exact opposite. And that is one of the biggest whys, so that you don't continue that cycle of pain, or you don't continue that cycle of self-deprecating talk. We look for the validation in those situations, even if they validate the false. These situations in my relationship with Gerald validated that I wasn't good enough for this, that I wasn't able to be chosen, that I wasn't who I really thought I wasn't who I wanted to be. And that was extremely damaging to me. But that's something that I was a participant in. I created. It doesn't mean that the people around us don't do things or don't say things, you know what I mean, that are hurtful, because we all do.
But you're in control.
But I was the one, I stayed in these situations and I carried them on, and I carried these stories on in my head.
Because the choice in that is you get to choose how impactful that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they shouldn't have said it, but you get to choose how impactful those words get to be to you.
Right.
That's important to me.
Yeah.
For sure. That's how I operate now
Yeah.
too. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. No.
Go ahead.
You get to a place where you can't even say that, where you can't, or you find yourselves in unhealthy situations, and you're too afraid to speak up. You're too afraid to tell, and this can be in a marriage or relationship of any relationship that you have. You can't even tell that person like, I can't allow this to go on anymore. I can't do this. My fear stopped me from saying so many things that were that were extremely necessary for the emotional well-being of myself, Gerald, of the family. But my fear stopped me from saying and making those really clear statements that could have actually, I mean, I don't know what the result could have been, but in general, within our marriage, there are plenty of things that either one of us could have said at any given time that really would have helped. I know for me, like I said, we just get caught up because we don't know.
Go lay down.
But we get so afraid of the outcome. Well, what if he doesn't like it? Or what if she doesn't like it? What if she doesn't like what I have to say? You know what I mean? What if she doesn't agree with me? And I think that forces us to make decisions, and that's hard. Hey, Bina. Our dog.
Somebody wants something.
I know. I think, I think this is a sign. I think
this
is, it's time to wrap it up. We've got everybody in our...
Everybody coming in, the dogs are standing up like, it's attention time. It's Saturday morning, we supposed to go do something. Y'all over here talking to people.
I know.
Well, yeah, I think there's so much stuff, and I know you got a bunch of stuff to talk about.
Oh, I think we for the most part...
There's so much to deal with trauma, and I think trauma and the response to trauma and fear and things like that are going to be the cornerstone. And we'll continue to talk about it. We'll continue to discuss it, create some tools for you guys. Lena, do not do that, please. Put some tools together. But this is a good show to stop. 52 minutes. We had a little technical issue. You know what I mean? But we are, I think I like this format. What do you think?
I do too. I like it. I like it.
Keep a lookout. Last week I discussed future self journaling that I learned from Dr. What's her name? LaPera?
Oh, Dr. Nicole.
Yeah, Dr. Nicole LaPera learned it. So I'm going to create a future self journaling like spreadsheet or PDF that you can use, and I'll put that up tomorrow so that you guys can use that to start to, because the thing with trauma is that it isn't good enough to just know your traumatic responses, because those are called habits, good or bad. They're habits. Our desire is to change bad habits into habits that are more preferable to what we are trying to accomplish in life. One of the top tools to do that is called future self journaling, where you journal to who you need to be in order to accomplish that goal. It sets the intentions on a daily basis per goal, and I think it's one of the most phenomenal ways to make any type of change. I write all day. I write on this whiteboard and erase. I have hundreds of notes in my iPad and phone. I write a blog at MrBpos.com. I'm always just trying to get the stuff out of my head and onto paper so that I can find the holes in my logic and really put together my understanding and how it relates in other topics. Do the same thing. It will definitely help you suss out your trauma and where it is now. Because your trauma may not have anything to do, like I don't have sexual trauma. I have the remnants of what that sexual trauma has throughout my life. I have a inability to connect with people. I have all of these small things, and it's important that I understand. So I'll link the Facebook post that I did in the comments after we're done later on tonight, and then I'll add the link tomorrow to the Facebook group, so make sure that you're sharing that as well. So it is important, and all we want to do is be better people, and all we want to do is be better for the people that we love and care for. And I believe if every single one of you just improve your lives for yourself and the handful of people that live in your house, the entire world would be better. So let's focus on improving ourselves, fortifying our mentals, right? Like Marshawn Lynch said, saving our chickens, you know what I'm saying? And putting our families in position to thrive forever. And be on the lookout, because I have a checklist that'll help you get to that. It's about 14 pages long, and that's going to help you as well. But yeah, I'm excited. What about you, babe?
I am. I'm really, really excited. I like the way today went. I like your. I
Like my
like the.
shirt?
I do. I like the message. I like that we're kind of vibing right now.
You
I
like my
like
shirt
that
though?
we're. I know this is my favorite shirt. I got this for you because I
It's
thought
like
you would
iced
like
tea.
it.
Iced tea with some ice cubes in it.
Ice cubes in the iced tea.
It's crooked, I think.
Ice cubes in the iced tea, but I like how we're kind of matching my. We look like the colors.
You be doing that on purpose and then
I did
talking about
not.
it was an accident. Yeah, right. I had the shirt on before you even got dressed.
I saw your white hoodie, sir. I
Fair
saw
enough.
your white hoodie.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay.
All right,
But
then
no.
everybody, we appreciate it. For more information, make sure that you join our Facebook group at the Healthier Family Movement. And if you need anything, reach out via Facebook. You can also check out my blog at MrBPos.com for tips and whatever. Usually it's just me dumping bullshit out of my brain onto paper. But we appreciate your support. We will get this technology thing down. And then also, yeah, and then also in the next 4 weeks, we will be having the audio version of this coming out. So we appreciate it all.
Okay.
Take
Thank you,
care
everybody.
and thank you.